Well, good afternoon. How's everybody? Lunch was good? Event going well? I'm Scott Patterson. I'm the Assistant Secretary for Enterprise Solutions at California Technology Agency. On the agenda is a little clarification. We had on there the future of California IT with Scott Gregory. So we thought that that would probably be a topic and discussion best left for Secretary Ramos. So we've kind of adjusted that. What we want to talk about today are the state's mobility efforts that are underway and how they go along with Secretary Ramos's speech today that he gave us the overview on. So we're going to do a little deeper dive, and we'll have questions and answers from everyone after that, if you'd like. For any of us that have been involved for any time in IT over the years, it's easy to recognize that mobility is more than a trend. There's a growing need for accessing information and truly interacting with government and business from the public. People want to know where their data is, they want access, they want it wherever they are and whenever they want to get it, 24/7. A couple of interesting statistics that I found today. It's estimated by 2014 that mobile access will take over PC access in accessing the internet. I think it's going to be sooner than that. Another figure I got from the news driving home last night, over 465,000 jobs have been attributed to mobile app development. And to me, that's a very impressive number and growing. It works. So once again, welcome. I'm going to do introductions for our panel we have here today. Robert Meza is our mobile app template developer and guru from Technology Agency. We have Scott Gregory. He's our Assistant Secretary and State Geographic Information Officer. And Adrian Farley at the end is our Assistant Secretary and Chief Technology Chief Technology Officer. So just quickly, it's by no accident really that the new strategic plan had mobility in mind when it was developed, with the vision of leveraging IT to better serve Californians and deliver better services and program objectives. Included in the objectives in the strategic plan are providing an accessible and mobile government, providing leadership and collaboration in the development of our governance model, establishing efficient, consolidated, and reliable infrastructure and services for mobility, of course, treating information as an asset, and the utilization of capable IT workforce to implement the solutions. My role in this is simple. I'm going to formulate and oversee the governance structure that will encourage further development of the mobile computing initiative through the collaboration of our key stakeholders, AIOs, CIOs within the state. With the idea of keeping this as a sustainable initiative. The goal is simple to me, to improve government efficiency by allowing the public to actively engage with government and to provide an effective delivery of services to the citizens. With that being said, I'm going to turn this mic over to Robert Meza to talk about the newly released version of the mobile template. Thank you. Robert?
Good afternoon. You know, it was about 3 years ago that we launched California Mobile. The California Technology Agency launched it. And the first thing that we did was that we created a template so it would be easy for all of our departments to quickly deploy mobile applications. It was also important that we had the same consistent look and feel throughout all the departments. Now, a lot has changed in the past couple of years. We've seen some platforms take off and some platforms go away. In 2011, our model was that any application that we built, we wanted to make sure that it worked on every single platform. So if you had a high-end smartphone or maybe a phone that wasn't so popular, you would get access to the same information. So one of the things that we didn't include was the mapping aspect because of the limitations of some of these devices. We also found out in August of this past year that a lot of other state and local agencies and departments were looking to California and adapting the model that we've set because we've had such success in it. So one of the things that we did is we made our templates publicly available in August, along with all of our training videos, our documentation. They were all made available at the National Association of Government Webmasters Conference, where over 200 agencies and departments downloaded our tools. Today, we're happy to announce that we are releasing version 3 of our template. And every day we see new devices being activated. About 700,000 Android phones are activated worldwide. 300,000 iPhones are activated worldwide every single day. What does that mean? When 2012 is really going to be defined as the year of the superphone, because all the phones coming out are going to have dual-core processors. Some are going to have quad-core processors. So what that means for us and why that's important to our template is that we can add new features and new functionality. We can get more involved with mapping and focusing on GPS-driven applications. And that's really our model for version 3, is that we're focusing on GPS-driven apps where if I go onto the CAL FIRE mobile website, I should see, if there's incidents near me. If I'm someplace in Southern California and there's not any incidents near me, I shouldn't see that information. So we're solely focused on GPS-driven applications. We have seen a huge increase in our mobile traffic. I think Carlos talked about it earlier, where the lowest number we've seen is 7% of all state traffic is being accessed now from a mobile device, and some departments are seeing it as high as 25%. So we know that there's a need and a demand, and we're not just talking smartphones, we're also talking tablets, because the same technology that's been built into the mobile template is now being leveraged to tablets by if I'm going onto the DMV website, I should see the closest DMV office and how long the wait time is, leveraging those GPS-driven applications. I mentioned that the main focus that we added to version 3 of our template was the mapping aspect, where before we stopped at address and phone number, now you're going to see a full aspect of mapping functionality added. Again, all of our templates are available for download today on camobile.ca.gov. What you're going to see also is a ton of training videos where if you really literally need step-by-step on how to implement our template and how to use some of the cloud-based services that we're using, you can go to this site and you'll see a ton of documentation. Now, I say today also that today there's a developer preview of what we're having, because over the next few months, we're definitely going to be adding new features to our template. So it's a great place to go and learn everything that we're doing mobile. We have our market information. You can see our trends that as of today, the iPhone, the Android, and Windows Phone 7 make up 96% of our traffic. So as the traffic, we're never going to be an iPhone fanboy or an Android fanboy. We're going to follow the market and make sure that our applications work across the board on all the platforms. Now, to focus back on mapping and the direction that we're going, I'm going to turn the time over to Scott Gregory.
Great. Thank you, Robert. Good afternoon. It's good to be with you today. I want to take the opportunity to share a little bit of information regarding the geospatial components and componentry and integration into the mobile template and also into the platform that we're proposing. One of the primary goals that we have in integration of geospatial technology into this is to really leverage and take advantage of the vast stores of geospatial data that's been developed and collected throughout the state for literally the past 25 years. Many organizations have very mature GIS programs, and many of them share their content in a way in which it can be integrated within the mobile template and within the mobile platform. But to break that down into 3 specific areas that we're interested in, primarily we want to be able to focus on the delivery of geospatial capabilities and specifically data into this new paradigm. And how will we do that? Well, there's many different approaches to looking at that. But when we think about GIS data in particular and how it works over the web and how it's translated into many different types of devices, we're going to be focusing on primarily a cloud-based approach to sharing data as a service. And that data as a service will come in many different forms, some that you may be familiar with, some that you may not be. But what it will do and what it will provide to the developer community and also the users, because really the target audience here is the citizenry of California. It's the governments of California. It's the businesses of California to be able to leverage this kind of content and this type of framework to make better decisions. So that will go into many different forms. The WMS, a web map service. KML, which is a file format that's pushed out of some of Google's products, and a WFS, which is a web feature service, which will allow for harvest and development of data from devices back to a host organization, which is very powerful if we kind of look at that, and I'll allude to it a little bit here and talk more in detail, but that really makes citizens as sensors, citizens as collectors of information to provide back to government, to provide better service. And that's what I think the key is here. When Robert talks about GPS-driven applications, yes, we're leveraging and taking advantage of the locational element of the device itself, but when we couple that with geospatial data on top of it, we can start to ask more intelligent questions regarding location. So when we look at that, we're also going to talk about and really begin to implement what are high-value data sets. In my opinion, high-value data sets are obviously ones that are in most demand. I mean, that's pretty easy to come to the conclusion on. But what's lying behind that is what's authoritative. Now, when we think about authoritative content, we want to be able to point to the organizations that develop, manage, and care for this data. That's where the authority comes from. They're the experts in it. We want to reference that data as a layer or a data source within this mobile platform. And then look at expanding the geospatial capabilities or analytical capabilities of the mobile template, moving that beyond the notion of this is the location of my device, what's within a certain distance, to asking more complex questions around proximity, or complex questions around routing me to a location. So for example, how far am I from something, or my location in proximity to? That's the real power of geospatial analysis, and that's what we're going to be bringing to the mobile template and in the future development of the mobile template to really make it a geo-aware and a geospatially capable platform for us to begin to develop some of these really intuitive and interesting applications. But of course, for these things to remain relevant and sustainable, we need to think about, as Scott mentioned, the governance and also the architecture and platform that will manage that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Adrian, and Adrian's going to discuss a little bit more detail about that and how those things and those elements fit together.
Thanks, Scott, and thank you all for being here today. It's a pleasure to be talking to you about what we're doing as it relates to mobility, and broadly from the perspective of, as the enterprise architect for the state, one of my responsibilities is to look at how we really enable the state's programs and services, as well as our partners, to more effectively leverage technology in a cost-efficient way. And one of the areas that we're looking at to do this is around data. If you look at the state's data repositories, we have probably over 1,000 different large data marts, and unfortunately, a lot of the data is locked in legacy and non-relational databases. And so from that challenge, we look at how do we free that data? How do we how do we expose it so that state agencies can more effectively leverage that data? This concept is broadly known as data as a service, and it really is important because it enables innovation both by state agencies, local governments, and our partners within government. But it also creates the opportunity for the private sector to access and leverage this data and provide value to Californians. The way that we're looking to do this is not to create some mega data warehouse, but rather to identify and make available the data where it exists using available and cost-efficient technologies in a service-oriented model. Beyond this, we're going to partner with both state, local, and federal agencies to make available high-value public data sets and make those available as services. And we're going to develop information sharing agreements with other non-governmental organizations and application developers so that they can use this data and we can use their data to really drive value. Because if you look at many of these legacy data stores, they contain real-time data. Most applications that exist using public data currently are driven on a batch time frame, which means that there's a large data lag. And so we're looking at ways to expose data so that it really becomes intelligence that end users, whether they be residents or businesses, can use to make and drive decision making. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Great, thank you. There we go. Carlos had mentioned some of the coming attractions, so I just wanted to put these up and go over them briefly. Really to provide secure mobile identity solution for the residents and businesses, an app to help businesses identify and select the location of a new job site perhaps, development of mobile payment processing, and apps, as Adrian was just speaking to, apps that leverage real-time data. A couple of apps that are under development to be released soon is the State Controller's Office Unclaimed Property app, and through the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, an inmate locator app. Mr. Gregory spoke to our statewide geo-portal to provide access to vast geographic data and geocoding services, and geodata services development of high-value data sets. Really what this comes down to is we keep going back to talking about the data, but it's the high-value data that we want to identify, get that out to the constituents so they can use it, make the mobile apps more interactive to where they can report data back, and really to add just more value to the constituents. So with that, that's really what we had for our presentation, and if you had any questions or answers for the panel, we'd be happy to take them.
No answers out there?
And if not, we will be, in the room and the rest of the conference. So real quick, let me see. You're asking that this high value data, are we going to charge for it? That's what I thought.
So the model that we're looking at is an information sharing agreement. There are some data sets, for example, that the state does charge for under current process. For example, the data that DMV provides to its business partners, specifically insurance companies and the like, it charges for. So this is we'll look at the specific data set and develop the right information sharing agreement based on the data set. There's some data that is simply provided because it doesn't have any proprietary nature to it. It's generally just a public record. We'll make that data available to end users, whether they be residents or application developers. The application developers, for example, will be required to provide the application, at least one version of the application that they develop on a free basis. So we don't want somebody to take the data and then basically not make it available to the public, but they can use fee-supported or ad-supported models, but they need, the example that I would tie to would be that many of you are familiar with is the RootC application. There's both a free version and a paid version, and the free, it would basically be a requirement that there be a free version that could be ad-supported, as well as there could be a paid version of an application.
Any other questions?
Yep.
Over there.
Okay. I'll take a shot at that, Paul. There are a few efforts in play right now, and I'll take the example that you offered there around parcel data. We know parcel data is a high-value data set. It's high value and has great utility for many organizations to use. Oftentimes, it's the basis upon which most and many applications are developed. One effort we have underway right now is through an organization called the Strategic Growth Council within the state. This is a council that's out of the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, and we're investigating ways in which we can normalize the 58 county parcel sets. What I mean by that is every county has a different way by which they assess value, map data, and catalog that kind of information. And there's no consistency from one county to another. That's problematic when we look at efforts to do things like planning or zoning across jurisdiction. You know, geographic or natural phenomena don't stop at administrative or governmental boundaries. We all understand that. So one effort that we're working on there is to normalize many different items there. One is the spatial accuracy or edge match of that type of information. So when San Bernardino County matches Riverside County, we have some consistent geometry and shared boundary information there. But more importantly, the database information. And the first effort that we're looking at is normalizing land use classifications. So if you look at a land use classification in Modoc County, it will ultimately be the same land use classification in San Diego County. You can understand this is a monumental effort. We have assessors that have been doing this for decades and decades, some over 100 years assessing property. But we recognize that it's not just a matter of getting the GIS community together to work on that, but we're also engaging entities through the Board of Equalization to look at some legislative mechanisms to make that happen as we collect information from these organizations to the state, and how we can make a continuous layer that's usable by many, that's authoritative. Paul, I hope that answered your question. Good, okay, almost. If not, get me after this and we'll chat in more detail.
So that would be a yes? Just kidding. Okay. I'm just kidding. Is there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're looking at various, I mean, the foundation is really the enterprise service bus that will be used for messaging, and then another layer of service below that will be a data transformation tool that will essentially transform the data from whatever format it's in into XML so that it can be consumed as a service. But it's also discovery tools to map the database tables, etc. So there's a whole stack of tools that we'll be leveraging in order to make data available through APIs. Well, we're going to identify 12 high-value data sets and have those available by the end of the year. So we're going to use a governance process that includes representatives from all the major agencies to identify and prioritize which data sets we make available first. But once we have the API infrastructure built and we have the tool sets available, people will be able to leverage those tool sets right away independently of the overall high-value data set effort.
Thank you. Okay, well, we will be available for the rest of the conference. I appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you.